This is an iHeart podcast.
Welcome in, everyone, to Lively Lewis Stories.
That's right. We're back with even more awesome adventures with Levi and Ivy.
Set your storytime meter to fun and get ready to join the Lively Lewis crew.
All you need is your imagination and...
Off we go! I can't wait to see where our story takes us today.
Have you ever wanted to get more Lively Lewis in your life?
Well, we've got you covered.
Grab an adult and zoom over to livelylewisshop.com.
Or just click on the link in our show notes.
Enough about that. Let's get to today's super Lively Lewis story.
I've got my snow boots, my snowboard, and my favorite winter hat. Levi listed out as he packed his suitcase. I also have my new snow gloves, my snow pants, and my super cool ski goggles. Levi then put on his snow goggles and pretended that he was skiing down a huge mountain. It was then that Ivy walked into his room. She giggled at what she saw, but couldn't help herself and joined in the fun. "Move over, Levi. I'm right behind you," called out Ivy as she pretended to be skiing down a huge snow-covered mountain too. Then Levi flopped onto his bed with a huge smile on his face. Still wearing his ski goggles, he turned to his sister with a look of magic in his eyes. "Ivy, I have a feeling that this vacation is going to be one that we'll never forget. Racing down snow-covered mountains, ice skating on glistening lakes, epic snowball fights, and gobbling up s'mores by an outdoor fire as we watch the snowfall? I can't wait." "I see someone's been reading the Snowy Mountain Lodge website," laughed Ivy. "But I agree with you too. It's going to be awesome, and I'm so excited too." After they were done packing their suitcases, the only thing left for Levi and Ivy to do was drive to the airport and set off for their winter Wonderland adventure. They barely slept that night, and as they drove to the airport, they talked more about this fantastic time they were going to have. "When we get to Snowy Mountain Lodge, let's head right to the ski lift and explore the mountain first," suggested Levi. "Or we could take a snowmobile down to the lake and check out the ice skating," exclaimed Ivy. "Or we could all check in together and go unpack our stuff in our room," added their mom with a smile, trying to make the boring vacation tasks sound fun. "You know what, Mom? I think Ivy and I will just be in your way," began Levi. "We'll leave the easy stuff like that to you and Dad, and Ivy and I will do the hard work. We'll check out the lodge and report back to you." Levi and Ivy's parents couldn't help but smile. They were so happy that their kids were excited for their vacation. It was the first time any of them had been to Snowy Mountain Lodge. They had only heard amazing things about it and couldn't wait to make their own fantastic memories. The flight seemed to last forever, and once the pilot announced that they would be landing soon, Levi and Ivy peered out of the plane window to see the snow-covered mountain range below. It looked unreal. As the mountain peaks glistened in the early morning sun, the whole world below began to look magical and full of fun. They couldn't wait to feel the cold snow in their hands and crunch it under their boots as they explored all that Snowy Mountain Lodge had to offer. Their time at the airport moved quickly, and after a short car ride, they arrived at the lodge, and it was even more amazing in person. "Wow!" exclaimed Levi as he stepped toward the lodge. Snowflakes were lightly falling all around him and Ivy, and it felt like it was a dream. The lodge towered over them as excited skiers, snowboarders, and ice skaters shuffled past them in all directions. But it only took a second to notice that the lodge looked small in comparison to the huge mountain behind it. "I can't wait to get up there," Ivy whispered to Levi as she pointed to the top of the snowy mountain. "Let's get going." Levi and Ivy grabbed their bags from the car and rushed inside the lobby. Their parents gathered up all the other luggage and met them inside. But by the time they did, Levi and Ivy had already been given a big welcome to Snowy Mountain Lodge. "Hello there and welcome in," came a booming voice from behind a giant wood-carved statue of a bear. For a second, Levi and Ivy thought the statue was talking until a man with a big gray beard and a pleasant smile popped out from behind it. "The name's Mr. Frost, and this is my lodge," said the man as he waved to Ivy and Levi. He was larger than life, like everything else they had seen since they arrived, and he offered to show them and their parents around the lodge since it was their first time visiting. "That would be great," said Levi and Ivy's dad. "How about we check in and you two get a tour of the lobby area, and then your mom and I will join you?" "Sounds great, Dad," said Levi and Ivy together as they followed Mr. Frost to a huge wall of windows that looked out at the mountain. He was so excited to share all he knew about the mountain and the lodge, with the hope of making sure they had the best vacation possible. Mr. Frost told Levi and Ivy the best snowboarding and skiing trails, what time ice skating opened at the lake, where to rent snowshoes, and how to make his famous caramel s'mores at the campfire that the lodge offered every night. "This place couldn't be any better," said Levi as he looked around in amazement. "I never want to leave." "Me either," said Ivy. "I can't wait to start our vacation adventure and do it all." As they talked about snow tubing and the snowball fight competition they have every Friday night, Levi and Ivy's parents walked over. They could see how excited their kids were, and it made them feel great. "Thank you so much for showing them around a bit, Mr. Frost," said Levi and Ivy's mom. "I didn't know they could be more excited for our vacation, but it certainly looks like they are now." "My pleasure," replied Mr. Frost. "If you all follow me, I'll show you to your room and tell you a little bit more about the lodge as we go." The excited group of 4 walked behind Mr. Frost as he told them the lodge's history and pointed out important things along their walk, like where the arcade and ice cream shop were located. "My family has owned this lodge for as long as I can remember," began Mr. Frost, "and I couldn't imagine working anywhere else. This place is so much more than a snow-covered mountain retreat for skiing or a frozen lake for skating. It's magical, and everyone finds their own magic when they're here, and I can't wait to hear what kind you find." Once they reached their room, Mr. Frost said goodbye and assured them that they would see him around. As he disappeared down the hall and around the corner, Levi and Ivy looked at each other with sparkle in their eye, each one excited to find out the magic that was waiting for them just outside the lodge. While their parents got the room set up, Levi and Ivy asked if they could take a walk around. "We won't go far at all," assured Levi. "We'll stay right around the lodge. We promise." "Yep, we'll be back in time for lunch," added Ivy. "Well, okay," answered their mom. "Just don't wander far, please." "We won't," called out Levi and Ivy as they zoomed out of the room. They were outside in no time and took a moment to just stand still and take in everything around them. And that was probably the last minute they were still for the whole vacation. They could feel the magic all around them. It sailed along on the crisp, cold air and wrapped around them like a blanket as the wind blew. Levi and Ivy hurried off to find adventure as they walked toward a snowy forest that was right next to their lodge. They couldn't believe how beautiful it was. Icicles dangled from tree limbs, making their whole forest look like it was made of shimmering crystals. A light snow tickled their noses as their boots crunched through the snow that lay on the ground. "Everything is so shiny," said Ivy as she spun around in the snow. "I'm starting to see the magic Mr. Frost was talking about." "I know, I feel like I'm in a winter dream world," said Levi as he picked up some snow and made it into a snowball. "And if you make a snowball, you're going to want to throw it." So since Ivy was the only other person around, Levi set his sights on her and started a snowball fight. The 2 kids laughed and ran along a snowing trail, tossing snowballs back and forth at each other. Then suddenly, they realized something amazing just in front of them. Levi grabbed Ivy by the shoulder and spun her around to see what he was looking at. An icy lake stretched out before them. It looked like a mirror reflecting all the beauty around them. "Now that's magic," whispered Levi to Ivy, who couldn't believe her eyes either. Then they heard something. "Actually, ice-covered lakes are pretty common around here. I'm a little more magical than that. At least I like to think I am," said a little voice from behind them. Thinking it was another kid who was staying at the lodge, Levi and Ivy turned around quickly to say hello. But what they saw next was something they didn't expect. You're a fox!" shouted Ivy when she and Levi focused on who was talking. "Absolutely right. You know your forest animals very well. It's a pleasure to meet you. My name is Blizzard," said the friendly fox with a smile. "Wow, you are definitely more magical than the ice skating lake," said Ivy before she introduced herself and Levi. "This is so cool," exclaimed Levi. "Mr. Frost said we'd find our own magic here, but I never thought it would be a talking fox." "I felt the same way when I found out humans could talk," giggled Blizzard. "Now enough with all this talking. How about we do a little skating?" Blizzard then glided out to the center of the lake and did a few of his best ice skating moves. Levi and Ivy were about to follow until they remembered that they didn't have on ice skates. Well, that's until they looked at their feet and noticed Blizzard had turned their boots into ice skates with little snowy forest magic. So off they went. The 3 new friends skated around for a bit, slip-sliding on the icy surface of the lake and enjoying the cool breeze and beautiful sights around them. "We're having so much fun, Blizzard," said Ivy. "Thank you for the ice skates." "No problem," said the funny little fox as he glided past them. When you're done here, I'd love to show you the snowy fort I've been working on. It's just right at the edge of the lake. Levi and Ivy loved forts, and after a few more slips and slides, they were ready to go check it out, magically turning their ice skates back into boots. Levi and Ivy only took a short walk with Blizzard before they were at the coolest snow fort they had ever seen. I tried to make it look like Snowy Mountain Lodge, said Blizzard, sounding very proud. I think I did a pretty good job. Pretty good? This fort is incredible, exclaimed Levi. I think you could start renting rooms out here for sure, said Ivy with a smile. Aw, thank you, said Blizzard. I worked really hard on it. You know, we're pretty good at making things out of snow too, added Levi, looking at Ivy. That's right, we won the neighborhood snowman building contest the last 2 years, said Ivy. Well, let's do it, exclaimed Blizzard. I was just thinking that my fort needs a big snowman outside. So without any hesitation, Levi and Ivy got started making the best snowman any of them had ever created. Once it was done, Blizzard stepped back and gave it a look. He paced around it as he swung his fluffy tail back and forth and twitched his little red ears. I hope he likes it, whispered Levi to Ivy as they waited for their new friend's reactions. I love it, shouted Blizzard. I love it so much, but I think it needs just one more thing. So with a swish of Blizzard's fluffy tail, Levi and Ivy felt a cool breeze, which got stronger and stronger. The snow on the ground swirled all around and around their snowman, and before they knew it, their snowman was alive. Levi and Ivy were stunned yet again as Blizzard introduced them. Levi, Ivy, I want you to meet, I guess you have to give him a name first. After all, you two built him, giggled Blizzard. How about Snowy, suggested Ivy. Snowy it is, replied Blizzard. Levi and Ivy meet Snowy. Levi and Ivy stepped towards the huge snow creation and said hello. This is the coolest thing ever, said Levi. And not just because he's made of snow. Nice to meet you too, answered Snowy as he stretched out his arms and looked around. You did a great job. But before Levi and Ivy could ask their snowman friend a bunch of questions, they heard two voices that they knew very well. It was their mom and dad. They had been having so much fun that they had lost track of time. Oh no, we'd better go, said Ivy, but we'll come back to see you later today. Sounds good to me, answered Blizzard with a smile. You know where we'll be. See you soon, called out Snowy as Levi and Ivy ran off to meet up with their parents. As they ran back toward the sound of their parents' voices, Levi and Ivy talked about what had just happened. Once they got back to their parents, they were ready to tell them all about their magical experience over lunch. But they would soon find out that the mischievous forest friends had other ideas when it came to eating at the lodge. Mom, Dad, we just had the most magical and unbelievable time, Ivy started. We can't wait to tell you all about it over lunch, said Levi. We're starving after the morning we had. I'm sure you have lots of fun things to tell us, but unfortunately, lunch will have to wait a bit, said Levi and Ivy's mom, handing them each an apple that she had brought from home. It looks like someone or something took all of the dishes, pots, pans, and utensils from the kitchen. Yep, the staff is trying their best to get some things together now to feed everyone, but they're suggesting that maybe we go to a nearby restaurant if we're really hungry, added Levi and Ivy's dad. Levi and Ivy didn't really think much of it, assuming that maybe someone in the kitchen had just misplaced some things. They were so hungry, so they decided to go elsewhere for lunch. And as Levi and Ivy's parents went to get the car, Levi and Ivy ran into Mr. Frost. I am so sorry about lunch, said Mr. Frost. I'm hoping to have the situation fixed very soon. However, it's been happening a lot lately, and we can't seem to stop the little thieves. So you know who's taking your kitchen stuff? Asked Levi. Yep, some very smart and sneaky bears, said Mr. Frost. I wonder if Blizzard knows them, whispered Ivy to Levi, but Mr. Frost overheard her. Did you say Blizzard? Asked Mr. Frost, sounding surprised. The magical frost that lives in the snowy forest. Amazed that Mr. Frost knew Blizzard, Levi and Ivy were all smiles, as they were so excited to be able to talk with someone else about the amazing adventure they had had. Yes, we just met him and went ice skating together, said Levi. Then we went to see his snow fort and made this huge snowman named Snowy that came to life, added Ivy. It was incredible. Hearing that Mr. Frost's frown about the missing food turned into a huge smile. He knew Ivy and Levi were just the two that could help him catch the mischievous bears. They're called the Snowy Bandits, and these two little bears have been taking all our kitchen gear without asking from the lodge kitchen for weeks, said Mr. Frost. I'd be happy to share with them if they would just ask, but they never have, and every time I try to catch up with them to talk, they slip away from me. This time, though, it's the most they've ever taken. Levi and Ivy immediately wanted to do all they could and knew that with Blizzard and Snowy by their side, they could help Mr. Frost and Snowy Mountain Lodge. So after they got back from lunch with their parents and told them all about the incredible new friends, they got right to work. Levi and Ivy's parents knew they had both had wonderful imaginations and didn't think much of Blizzard and Snowy, but they did think it was very nice that they wanted to help Mr. Frost. They were so excited to do it that their parents agreed and let them continue on their great adventure. We'll expect a full report at dinner tonight, said Levi and Ivy's mom as her kids hugged her goodbye and ran off to meet up with Blizzard and Snowy. Once Levi and Ivy made it through Snowy's forest and back to Blizzard's fort, they told him and Snowy all about what was happening at the lodge. Oh yeah, I totally know the Snowy Bandits, said Blizzard. They're always taking things that don't belong to them. I've tried to figure out why they do what they do, but then they always run off before we can talk. I think if we all work together, we can figure out a way to stop them and maybe even help them to not do it again, said Ivy. With everyone on board, she, Levi, Blizzard, and Snowy got to work creating a plan to stop the Snowy Bandits. The one thing they knew about these mischievous bears is that they loved kitchen stuff. So they knew their plan to catch them would have to include some shiny pans, pretty dishes, and as many utensils as they could find. Blizzard then led Levi, Ivy, and Snowy through the snowy forest to find where Snowy Bandits could usually be found hanging out. Once they got closer to a little clearing in the forest, they could hear the bears laughing and talking about the kitchen stuff they had taken from the lodge. What a haul today, said one of the bears. All of my favorite dishes, too. Pans, bowls, ladles, and dishes. So many dishes. I know, I can't wait to share them with all our friends, said another bear as he rubbed his paws together while standing in front of the huge pile of kitchen items. The bears then carried off the bags of supplies as Snowy, Blizzard, Levi, Ivy watched, not knowing exactly what to do. That was until Blizzard had an idea. We'll need to catch them first. Then they can lead us to the place that they're keeping all the stuff they take from the lodge, whispered Blizzard. There's so many caves around here, we'll be looking for days if we tried to find it on our own. But how do we catch them? Asked Levi. Well, they're so focused on kitchen stuff that we know we need to use some of those things to get their attention, said Ivy. But don't you think they'd be a little suspicious if all of a sudden there was a pile of kitchen utensils just waiting in the forest for them? Asked Levi. Maybe. Or maybe it's just crazy enough to work, answered Ivy. At that point, they decided to give it a try because they wanted to do whatever it took to help Mr. Frost and Snowy Mountain Lodge. So off they ran to Blizzard's fort where he worked some of his amazing magic to create a whole bunch of ladles, whisks, and slotted spoons. Then they took the kitchen gear and plopped it in a big pile right where they had seen the bears before. And after that, they waited. It didn't take very long for the bears to see the sunlight reflecting off shiny silver spoons, and before long, they were back. We've got them now, whispered Ivy. See, I told you it would work. But once the bears approached the pile of ladles, whisks, and slotted spoons, they looked suspicious and circled them a few times. Because what Blizzard, Snowy, Levi, and Ivy didn't know was that the bears knew they were watching them and had set up this little trap. So they waited and waited and waited until Blizzard, Snowy, Levi, and Ivy turned away from the pile of kitchen stuff to think of a better plan. Okay, you were right, Levi. It didn't work, said Ivy, sounding frustrated. Or did it? Said Snowy, looking at where the kitchen gear used to be. I think the bears grabbed it while we were talking just now. Oh, man, exclaimed Ivy as she looked around and couldn't see the bears anywhere. How about we try my idea? Let's leave a trail of dishes, bowls, and platters into one of the caves with a net at the end. Once they pick up the last dish, the net will fall on them, and then they can tell us where all the other stuff is that they took from the lodge kitchen. Everyone agreed to give it a try, and after Blizzard used his magic to make up a bunch of dishes, bowls, and platters, they laid them out, set up a big net, and waited. But once again, the bears outwitted them as they took all but the last few dishes that were in the cave. By doing that, they avoided the net and being caught. However, they knew the net worked because when Blizzard went in to retrieve the last dish, it dropped down on him, giving him quite a scare. As Levi and Ivy and Snowy helped Blizzard out of the net, they heard the bears outside. I can't believe those guys are trying to catch us, laughed the bear. It'll never happen. You got that right, said the other bear. We'll have our Snowy Forest restaurant up and running soon. And then all anyone will be able to talk about is how great our cooking is. And no one will ever care where we got our kitchen stuff in the first place. That's right. The first Snowy Restaurant Forest. No, the first Snowy Forest restaurant. And we'll be the master chefs, cheered the other bears as they walked into the falling snow. After hearing that, Blizzard and Snowy came up with a plan that they wanted to test out. It would take just a touch of magic and a lot of their animals. Levi and Ivy trusted Blizzard and Snowy and watched as the plan took shape. Blizzard used his amazing fort-building skills to make a restaurant in the center of the Snowy Forest. Then he sent out a call to all the animals he knew in the area to come and try it out. However, they were all in on the trick because it only took a few minutes for the Snowy Bandits to find out what was happening, and they were not happy. A restaurant? Open it up in the Snowy Forest, and we're not the ones opening it up? Yelled the bears when they heard the news. After that, all they could do was follow the line of forest animals that were headed for this new place to eat. As soon as they arrived, the bears saw a line out the door and couldn't believe their eyes. This should be their restaurant. This should be their customers. They should be eating their wonderfully cooked food. So it didn't take long for the bears to push their way to the front of the line and demand to know who was in charge. Why, it's me, said Blizzard, turning around with a big smile on his face. The bears immediately recognized Blizzard and sensed it was all a trap, given that he had been following them with Snowy, Levi, and Ivy all day. But once the bears finally put all the clues together, it was too late to run. Snowy stepped right behind them, and when they turned to make an escape, the giant, towering snowman quickly put a stop to that. He picked up the two bears in his huge snowy hand and walked them over to the edge of the lake. So I think you know why we did all of this, said Blizzard to the Snowy Bandits. You need to return all the kitchen stuff you took from the lodge. Taking things that aren't yours is never the right thing to do. That's when the bears broke down, looking really sad as they saw their dreams of opening Snowy's Forest restaurant quickly slipping away. We just love cooking so much, whispered one of the bears, and all we ever wanted was to open our own restaurant here in the Snowy Forest. But you don't exactly see many cooking supply stores around here, now do you? Asked the other bear. So we took a few things from the lodge. We didn't think they'd mind. Well, I think they did mind when you pretty much took everything in their kitchen, said Ivy. Did you ever think of just asking Mr. Frost for help? Asked Levi. Well, no, not really, said one of the bears. Do you really think that would have worked? There's only one way to find out, said Blizzard with a big smile. The bears then walked with Blizzard, Snowy, Levi, and Ivy back to the cave where they had stored all of the kitchen supplies they had taken over the last couple of weeks. Blizzard used his magic to transport it all back to the lodge where Mr. Frost, Levi, and Ivy's parents had a bunch of hungry people waiting. Oh, I wish you would have just asked for my help in the first place, said Mr. Frost to the bears as they explained their story. They apologized and returned all of the things they took. They were then ready to head back to the Snowy Mountain Forest when Mr. Frost asked them a question. Where do you think you're going? It just so happens I need 2 more cooks in my kitchen. Do you two think you'd be able to help? I heard you love to cook. The Snowy Bandits, now known as the Snowy Chefs throughout the area, couldn't believe their ears. They agreed immediately and ran right into the kitchen to get cooking. After all, the people at the lodge had been waiting to eat for hours. That night, under the magic and splendor of a winter moon, Mr. Frost celebrated his 2 new chefs, as well as Blizzard, Snowy, Levi, and Ivy around a giant bonfire with a grand s'mores party. Now, what would make this night even better? Asked Blizzard to Levi and Ivy as they warmed themselves by the fire. How about a little snow? I'd like that, said Snowy. Us too, said Levi and Ivy. And then with a swish of his fluffy tail, tiny perfect snowflakes began to fall from the night sky, blanketing the whole area in shimmering snow. Levi and Ivy enjoyed the rest of their time at Snowy Mountain Lodge with their family and their new friends. And they learned a very important lesson that first day. How teamwork, understanding, and kindness can turn any situation into a wonderful, memorable adventure. Thanks for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed the story and learned a little something too.
And since we know everyone has their own story, we'd love to hear yours.
If you have an idea for a Lively Lewis story, leave a comment on our Apple Podcast review page with 5 stars, your idea, and your little one's name.
Then maybe our next adventure will be with you.
Until our next Storytime Hangout.
Thanks for listening. We can't wait to share another fun Lively Lewis story with you.
This is an iHeart podcast.